Ferrari left Monaco with a second-place finish, a wrecked car, and a question that could define the next phase of its season. Was Lewis Hamilton simply having a better weekend than Charles Leclerc? Or did Monaco finally reveal that the two Ferrari drivers had been working with cars that were no longer moving in the same technical direction? On the surface, the Monaco Grand Prix looked relatively simple. Mercedes won again. Hamilton finished second and collected another important result for Ferrari. Leclerc failed to finish after losing control entering the final corner. But once the race ended and the post-race comments started coming out, the story changed completely. Because Leclerc was not describing an ordinary crash. He was not blaming the barriers. He was not blaming the track surface. He was not blaming another driver. He was describing a Ferrari that had become almost impossible to stop. And the most uncomfortable part for Ferrari is that Hamilton may have already found a way around the problem several races earlier. That is what makes Monaco so important. This was not just another difficult weekend for Leclerc. It may have been the race that exposed a quiet split inside Ferrari's development process. Hamilton had moved in one direction. Leclerc had stayed with the familiar setup. And now, after one of the most painful crashes of his season, Leclerc is moving toward Hamilton's solution. For Ferrari fans, this creates a fascinating question. Has Hamilton's experience helped him identify a weakness in the SF26 before the rest of the team fully understood it? Or has Leclerc simply been left fighting a problem that should never have reached the streets of Monaco in the first place? If you believe Ferrari must stop wasting Leclerc's best years with avoidable technical problems, subscribe to the channel and share your opinion in the comments below. And if you think Hamilton is finally starting to prove why 7 World Championships still matter, tell us that too, because Monaco may have changed the conversation inside Ferrari. Coming into the weekend, expectations were high. Monaco looked like one of Ferrari's best opportunities to challenge Mercedes. The SF26 had not been the fastest car across the opening phase of the season, but the streets of Monte Carlo offered a different type of test. Monaco is not mainly about top speed. It is not mainly about long straights. It is not mainly about extracting maximum engine power. It is about confidence. It is about mechanical grip. It is about placing the car perfectly between barriers that leave almost no room for error. It is about knowing exactly what the car will do when you touch the brake pedal. That final point became the entire story. Ferrari appeared competitive early in the weekend. Leclerc looked comfortable at his home race. The car showed enough promise for people in the paddock to believe Ferrari could fight near the front. And because Leclerc has always been exceptionally quick around Monaco, there was genuine hope that he could deliver something special. But as the weekend developed, the balance shifted. Mercedes improved. Kimi Antonelli found more pace. Ferrari did not progress in the same way. Hamilton continued extracting results, but Leclerc's confidence in the car began moving in the opposite direction. This is where the Monaco story becomes more serious than one mistake at the final corner. According to Leclerc, the braking issue was not new. He said similar problems had already appeared earlier in the season and had also affected him in Canada. The problem was not simply that the car struggled to stop. The real issue was unpredictability. A Formula One driver can adapt to a car that is consistently weak in one area. If the brakes are not ideal but behave the same way every lap, the driver can compensate. He can brake earlier, he can adjust his corner entry, he can change the way he manages the tyres. But when the car behaves differently from one braking zone to the next, confidence disappears. And once confidence disappears at Monaco, the barriers suddenly feel much closer. Leclerc explained that the imbalance between the front and rear axles became increasingly difficult to manage. Sometimes the car responded one way, sometimes it responded another way. Every braking zone became a calculation. For a driver, that is exhausting. For a driver racing at Monaco, it is dangerous. As long as the race remained under normal conditions, Leclerc was still managing the situation. The car was not comfortable, but it was still controllable. Then the safety car appeared. That changed everything. Under safety car conditions, drivers work constantly to keep temperature in the brakes and tyres. They weave across the track. They accelerate and brake repeatedly. They try to prevent the car from falling outside the operating window it needs to perform properly. At Monaco, this becomes particularly difficult. The circuit has no long straights. Average speeds are low. The opportunity to rebuild temperature is limited. And once Leclerc's brake temperatures dropped, the problem became far worse. His post-race explanation was extraordinary. Leclerc said that after the safety car period, 3 of his 4 brakes were no longer working properly. Only the front left brake was operating as expected. The front right was reportedly producing roughly half its normal effectiveness. Both rear brakes were contributing almost nothing. That is not a minor imbalance. That is not a driver complaining because he missed an apex. That is a car asking one front brake to carry almost the entire burden of stopping a Formula One machine on the narrowest circuit of the season. Leclerc said the data showed the rear brakes were effectively doing nothing. He compared the situation to driving as if the rear calipers were not even attached to the car. At that point, the crash becomes easier to understand. Immediately after the accident, some observers suggested Leclerc may have touched marbles or debris. Others wondered whether he had simply misjudged the grip available on the track. But Leclerc rejected that explanation. He said he had used the same section of asphalt repeatedly before the crash without any problem. His message was clear. The track did not suddenly betray him. The car did. And when Leclerc said the situation had reached the point where it was becoming dangerous, that should have triggered alarm bells inside Ferrari. Because this is not the language drivers use when they are trying to hide a simple mistake. This is the language of a driver who believes the problem was already inside the car before he reached the corner. But the biggest twist was still to come. While Leclerc had been trying to manage this braking problem, Hamilton had already gone in another direction. 3 races earlier, Hamilton switched to a different brake package. At the time, hardly anyone noticed. Most of the attention surrounding Ferrari was focused on the overall performance gap to Mercedes. People were discussing power, qualifying pace, tyre degradation, and whether Ferrari had built a car capable of fighting for wins consistently. The brake specification looked like a smaller detail. After Monaco, it no longer looked small. Hamilton had quietly moved away from the package Leclerc was still using. He had started adapting to a different material and a different braking feel. And over those same races, Hamilton's comfort level appeared to improve. Now Leclerc has confirmed that he will follow the same path. Starting from the Spanish Grand Prix, both Ferrari drivers are expected to use the same brake specification. That means the Monaco crash may have forced Ferrari to reset its technical direction. Leclerc admitted the alternative package was already available to him before the race. He chose not to switch because Monaco is the worst possible place to introduce a major change in braking feel. That decision makes sense. At Monaco, familiarity matters. A driver needs total confidence. Every corner arrives quickly, every braking zone demands precision. Changing the feel of the pedal before the most unforgiving weekend of the year could easily create a different type of problem. Leclerc stayed with what he knew. Hamilton had already accepted the risk of change 3 races earlier, and now the result is impossible to ignore. Hamilton finished ahead of Leclerc for the 3rd consecutive race. He stood on the podium in Monaco despite serving a 5-second penalty. He managed tyre degradation, he maximised the car. He openly admitted Ferrari still could not match the pace of Mercedes. But he extracted almost everything available from the package. That is where the Hamilton story becomes more interesting. For months, every small setback has been used to question whether he can still adapt. Every difficult qualifying session has become another debate about age. Every uncomfortable radio message has been turned into proof that his move to Ferrari may not work. But Monaco offered a different possibility. Maybe Hamilton was not simply struggling with the Ferrari. Maybe he was learning it. Maybe he was testing different solutions. Maybe he was using the experience of 7 world championships to identify a weakness before it became impossible to ignore. And maybe the first visible proof of that process arrived when Leclerc decided to use Hamilton's brake package. That does not mean Hamilton has suddenly solved Ferrari's problems. He has not. Mercedes still appeared to have a clear advantage. Antonelli built a major lead before the safety car. The W17 looked especially strong through turns 3 and 4. Ferrari could not match that pace. Hamilton himself was honest about it after the race. He congratulated Antonelli and Mercedes. He acknowledged Ferrari still had work to do. He did not pretend 2nd place meant the SF26 had become the fastest car. But that honesty may actually strengthen the argument. Hamilton is not claiming the car is perfect. He is gradually finding a way to make it more predictable. And in Formula One, predictability is where performance begins. Before a driver can attack qualifying, he needs to trust the brakes. Before he can carry more speed into a corner, he needs to believe the rear axle will behave properly. Before he can extract the final few tenths of a second, he needs confidence. Hamilton may be building that confidence. Leclerc lost his at Monaco. That does not mean Leclerc was wrong to stay with the familiar package. It means Ferrari now has a major responsibility. The team must make sure both drivers are working from a stable technical baseline before the season slips further away, because Ferrari cannot afford to turn this into another internal battle. Fans have seen this story too many times. A fast driver, a difficult car, a team searching for answers. One side of the garage moving in one direction, the other side trying something different. Results becoming inconsistent, pressure building, and eventually the conversation stops being about winning races and becomes a debate over which driver the team should trust. That is the danger. Leclerc remains one of the fastest drivers on the grid. Monaco is his home race. He knows those streets better than almost anyone. If he says the braking issue became dangerous, Ferrari cannot dismiss it as frustration. Hamilton is not the enemy in this story. Leclerc is not the problem either. The real issue is whether Ferrari has given both drivers a car they can trust. And Barcelona now becomes extremely important. When Leclerc switches to Hamilton's brake specification, Ferrari will finally have both cars following the same technical direction again. That gives the team a clearer comparison. It removes one major variable. It allows Ferrari to understand whether the new package truly improves stability, confidence, and consistency. If Leclerc immediately looks more comfortable in Spain, Monaco will be remembered as the weekend that exposed the problem. If nothing changes, Ferrari will know the issue goes deeper than the brake material. Either way, the next race could provide the clearest answer yet. Ferrari still has larger problems to solve. The car needs more downforce. The team still appears to have a power deficit compared with Mercedes. Tyre management remains a concern. Overall performance still needs to improve. But solving the braking issue could unlock much more than one corner entry. When a driver trusts the car under braking, he can attack earlier. He can carry more speed. He can rotate the car with confidence. He can manage tyres more effectively. He can focus on racing instead of constantly wondering whether the car will behave differently at the next corner. That is why Monaco may become one of the most important races of Ferrari's season, even though the team did not win. Hamilton's podium matters. Leclerc's crash matters. But the technical decision that follows may matter even more. For the first time in several races, Ferrari is bringing its drivers back onto the same path, and now the pressure moves directly onto the team. Did Hamilton quietly find the better solution 3 races earlier? Will Leclerc immediately benefit from the change? Or has Monaco exposed a deeper weakness inside the SF26 that Ferrari cannot solve with one new brake package? Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you believe Hamilton's experience is starting to reshape Ferrari from inside the garage, subscribe to the channel. If you believe Leclerc has once again been let down by a car that should never have become that unpredictable, subscribe and make your voice heard as well. Because Ferrari fans are not asking for excuses anymore. They are asking for a car both drivers can trust. And after what happened in Monaco, Barcelona may tell us whether Ferrari finally has an answer.